Well, one of the things that I thought was very enlightening was the fact that at the end of, I think, the first time the three of us were together, and our moderator was the divine Charlotte Gray, who's still with us somewhere in the room, she asked us, so, when this was all over, did you like her subject? And all three of us replied in the negative. Which I think it's important, however, to remember that liking your subject and respecting your subject are separate experiences. And it is true that the relationship changed as one moved one's way through the research and then the writing of the book. I mean, and liking one's subject also means that, I mean, or not liking one's subject can also mean that you can have compassion for the subject. I believe, in the case of Lucy Maud anyway, that although by the end of the book I knew that she would have been an extremely high maintenance friend, I also knew that I could feel this enormous compassion for her because of the kind of pain that she was going through, which was excruciating on her behalf. I mean, one cannot argue in any way with that kind of emotional pain. And but on the other hand, I knew what it would be like to have to be with her on a daily level, and that's what I meant by not liking. Of course, I liked what she'd been able to achieve. I even liked her vulnerability on occasion. But in the final analysis, although I wouldn't have wanted to spend weeks and weeks with her, I nevertheless felt great compassion for her.
There is no way I want to spend any time with my anyway. But I love the man, but at the end of my book, what I loved most was the era I had lived with him. And I think a lot of people would say that you lived through very turbulent times with Pierre Trudeau and Quebec, and I loved that epic even more after I was done with the book. As for the character himself, I discovered a few things that I did not know. For instance, his attachment to the Indian cause in Quebec, how forceful he had been all his life and very logical, and also very Trudeau-like in his rapport with the Indian nations of Quebec. Also, I was surprised by the fact that he was not a cultured man. I thought he was a man who read novels and went to the opera. No way, no. He had no time for that. But he was a man that loved culture and encouraged it to foster it in Quebec. So, and then you see the contradictions with him and the pains he's been through. But what was heartening for me was that he was a very transparent man. There was no way you could find anything, that you did not know about him before. I was in Quebec City this week to do promotion of the book, and I was asked...
Which is just out in French. So they're starting not French, there are three of them.
Thank you, because I wrote the French version first and then the English version. And the radio talk show host in Quebec City, who was Quebec City is famous for the trash radio. The first question they put to me, they said, did you know that René Lévesque was bisexual? So, the research now, I said,
confirm or deny?
They said that, well, if he was bisexual, he hit this game pretty well. and I knew too that all sorts of rumors about children being gay and all that. And he hit it also extremely well. That's what's the thing that they were
Maybe they were an underground couple.
That was the 80s Lemon cartoon.
Anyway, I did not find anything in his life that surprised me or shocked me or whatever. He was the real René Lévesque through and through, and that's what I enjoyed about him. And the only difference here, perhaps, in my treatment of the subject was the kind of light that I put on him to show a nuanced portrait of the man. And that they are not used to in Quebec, but they are getting slowly used to it because they're tired of the polarization and the half-truths and the quarter truths that they've been fed with for so many years. So they are ready now for another portrait of René Lévesque, which shows that every generation has writes its own history.
I have to say first, speaking of difficult relationships and Catholic guilt, I find myself wanting a glass of water, but I'm reluctant to disturb the sanctity of this liturgical rite.
Particularly since it's Guinness.
And it seems that my fellow panelists feel the same way, and I'm wondering which one of us.
The strange thing is that usually it's either both or only wafers, but in this case it's only one.
In a Guinness glass, which is interesting.
I think that all biographers talk about this arc, or maybe it's more than one arc, about being fascinated by, maybe falling in love with, and then having some kind of breakup with their subject. And for my own case, I spent a lot of time, before I wrote a word, just listening to everything that Glenn Gould had recorded and reading everything, or almost everything that he published, and in a sense trying to get inside his head, which is a very strange place. And the strangeness of which I tried to bring out in my somewhat unusual approach, kind of anti-narrative approach to telling the story of his life. I think that, like the others, and all of the others, but especially these two, because we've now had an occasion to talk about this, the difficulties become the kinds of difficulties that you have, not with friends so much as maybe with family members. The people that you love and you can't get out from under your skin, and you may not like them, but there's respect and a kind of bond which is inescapable, and you have to keep negotiating it over and over again. And I still feel this way about Gould, because I don't think, for me anyway, he's a subject that I can walk away from, even though the book is done. And then that actually makes some vivid sense of that idea that you're still arguing with John about whether you're going to write the biography.
And I'm also finding myself picking up more and more Montgomeryiana. It's fascinating to think that you mentioned the family bond, because I think that's very true, because a family, of course, is a group of people that you do not choose, or an individual that you do not choose, but that you are related to nevertheless. They are going to be in your life. Even their absence from your life is going to be a relationship. I've always said in our family, probably the strongest manifestation of relationship is when two members stop speaking to each other. And I mean, they are way more connected than those of us who are speaking to each other. Because they're not speaking to each other. That is a very active state, whereas the sort of, garble is a passive state in relation to that. So, yes, I think there were moments when I was not speaking to Lucy Maud. And I was also moments when I was not speaking to John Ralston Saul. He was the person that made me speak to Lucy Maud in the first place. And so, but
actually, when you weren't speaking to Lucy Maud, that's when you were speaking to me.
Oh, that's right, that's true. That's right. I was complaining to John. And then gradually I would sort of fall back into it. And I have to say the experience became quite moving eventually, because it was like a difficult relationship. It was like the kind of relationship that you have with a child that you can't control. Because unfortunately, when you're writing a biography, you can't make anything up. When you're writing fiction, you can, if some character is doing something that you don't like, you just change it. But you can't do that with biography. I tried. But you're supposed to stick to somebody's version of the facts. And in the case of Lucy Maud, that would be Lucy Maud's version of the facts, because she kept copious diaries. Diaries that I came to doubt as I continued through my relationship with her. But nevertheless, it's like having a friend come over and tell you a story from their point of view. And we're all human, and we all have a point of view. And our point of view is often very, very different than the point of view of the other person that might be the fellow player in the story, in the narrative. But it really was a kind of wrestling match. It was something I sort of think of paintings of Jacob and the angel, although I don't know who was Jacob and who was the angel, but it really felt as if I was getting up in the morning kind of going back in, I'm going in. It was almost military.